gymnastics. As far as the wrestling did, what I did was I intimidated a lot of people because I didn't give a
big gold and a billfold so swole that
you can say hi now. Hey, we are here.
So
Rip Rogers, Lila Studios, Wrestling with Rip Rogers. We are here with a fantastic interview today, Rip. Could be the greatest one that we've done in many, many months. That's Rip's line.
Yeah. This is the greatest one we're going to have with the female today.
That's right. Shelly Martinez. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. AKA Ariel, AKA any other name that you've ever went by. Right here, Lila Studios, Wrestling with Rip Rogers. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How about you fellas?
Oh, we're doing great. So are you in California? You're in California?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a
Born
little
and
early.
raised.
10 o'clock. What time is it there? 10 o'clock there?
Yeah.
Oh, 1 o'clock here. So we're good to go. I'm glad you could get up this morning and join us this bright and early. I got to tell you, we don't plan a lot of stuff. We don't prepare a lot of stuff, but I'm sure you're a subscriber and you watch all our shows and all our interviews. So I'm sure you already know that, right?
You know, I've caught a couple. What I like to do is I like to go on YouTube when I'm doing cardio because it just helps it go by faster.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are on my list of because there's so many I need to catch up on, but I just love that you guys are doing this. I think you guys have had some awesome guests and I'm just all about it. So throwing positive energy your fellows' way.
All right.
Positive
How about that,
energy.
Rip?
That's what I need.
Now, the whole goal of this show is try to get Rip to talk. He doesn't talk a lot. He makes me do all the questioning and interviewing. And so if you can interact with Rip at all during this episode, that would be one of the greatest things that ever
Now,
happened.
wait a minute. We got this hot young lady on here, and guys are visual. I am visual, so they're just staring, and they got their tongues are hanging.
Wait,
out.
maybe we don't want Rip to talk. Hold on.
Well, okay, I'll just sit there and look and be an old perv. So what the hell, right?
No, it takes a lot for that. That means a lot. We started it's been about 6-7 months, and we've been slowly building. We've had, like you said, we have some decent guests, so we keep plugging away, and we're gonna just keep going. So we really appreciate your time and coming on here. So that's awesome. But we are gonna have.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go.
I love following you on Twitter, Rip, because I just love the things you have to say. You've never given a crap about what other people have to say about what you have to say. So I just love that the internet world gets to see your thoughts, your wisdom. And I'm going to be honest with you. There's been a couple times I've been just straight up lazy. And when I see your posts about putting time in and all this, you kick me right in the ass when you don't even know it. And then I get going.
About that. It's the big bicep pose he does, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see it at 4 a.m. Hey, it's 4 a.m. with the bicep pose.
Hey, I was at the goddamn gym this morning, and I was on the highway for an hour because some dumbass had a wreck. So now I'm punished.
Get the microphone now.
Oh, gotta get the microphone on here.
Get the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, he likes those 4 a.m. bicep.
Somebody's got to do it. Hell, I'm 68. I'll be croaking pretty soon, probably. So I gotta get as much living in as I can do.
Hey, don't talk like that, no.
Huh?
Don't talk like
I'm
that.
just talking reality, Okay, well, I'm going to be the great Antonio. What was it? Antonio Rocca said he was going to live to be 150. He died when he was 49.
Oh my God.
The son of a bitch shouldn't have said that. See, the karma got him. See, I got enough karma coming from my ass, and I know it. So. Was I a no good son of a bitch? You're damn right I would. Would I change anything? Hell no. Hell no. Don't get me wound up, Lilas.
Yeah, let's get you wound up. That's what we want, man. So we are going to have to talk a little bit of wrestling, if that's all right.
Well, you don't really talk.
It is a wrestling show. We try not to talk all wrestling. We do other stuff, but. Now, you've always been a California girl, right? Have you born in California, and that's where you got your start, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that for me, because that was back in the day before the internet is what it is.
Yeah.
So honestly, I didn't know how to even get involved in wrestling because at that time on the West Coast, especially in California, wrestling wasn't really something that if you wanted to get into it, you knew that you go to wrestling school, you do your shows, whatever. I had no idea. So I appreciate that my time in the business started when it did, because I know how hard it used to be to get in the business instead of just sending out a link to your YouTube saying, hey, check out my matches, book
Right.
me. It was like, finding out how to go to a good school, training, putting a tape together or having someone put a tape together for you, mailing it out. So yeah, I come from that era of wrestling.
That's interesting then. How did you get into your first school? What was the school? Who was your trainer? How did that process take place then?
Well, after high school, I went to college just for a little bit, but I always knew I wanted to be in WWF at the time.
Wow.
So what I would do is when I would go on auditions or I'd be on acting or modeling gigs, I'd always blab about how much I wanted to be this wrestler, which was pretty not common for any like actress to be saying back then. And the way I looked at it was, eventually the right person will hear me out and point me in the right direction. So this casting director, Cyndi Lauper, she put me in an independent film about wrestling and they used local wrestlers. So during downtime, I'd be like, hey, like, I know I'm supposed to be in WWF one day. How do I do that? And then that's when they were like, you go to wrestling school. Here's our school. It's a school in San Bernardino called School of Hard Knocks. And they use like all of their guys. And so any chance I got during that shoot, I just would ask them so many questions. And then it was really cool because I think because of my look, the owner, he invited me to come to the school and I never paid for training because he always felt like he was like investing. And so that worked out great because as soon as I got into doing training and everything, I really put my acting and modeling on the back burner because I was like, that'll always be there, but I got to do this wrestling thing now. So that's when I went and got a real job. And then I was wrestling on, going to training and then eventually wrestling on the weekends. And so it really was helpful that I didn't have to pay for my training.
Yeah, that's awesome. So to back up, and we don't usually do childhood stuff, but did you knew then even as a kid, or was this a high school thing? Like when did you know you wanted to be a wrestler?
When I used to watch Cyndi Lauper in the 80s being
with the rock and wrestling or whatever it was when they.
Yeah, like I just loved Cyndi Lauper and it opened my eyes to this whole like, I didn't understand at the time, but eventually I understood that I love the theatrics of wrestling, that it was like being in a theater, like live theater, but you're using your body. And like, I just was so mesmerized by it.
Yeah.
And when Cyndi Lauper was involved, it just like, I don't know. I was like, dude, I know this is what, and I know this sounds so dumb and people used to give me a hard time back in the day, but I would always say, no, that's just what I'm supposed to do. And people didn't, they were like, you're crazy, especially back in the day. So I was into it. And then I fell out of watching for a little while because, you get older, boys distract you. And then when I got into high school and the Attitude Era took over, that's when I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And everyone thought I was like cocky and like whatever, because I would always talk about it. They thought I was delusional. They called me crazy. A wrestler. Okay. I'm like, no, that's what I'm supposed to do. So.
Hey, Rip Boy says you gotta be a little crazy. You gotta have a card missing, as he says, to get into the wrestling business anyway. So yeah, that's what it takes, man. Like
all the rest, everybody that's a wrestler, we're all missing a card.
I agree.
Maybe not these days as much, but
more so these days.
Maybe, yeah, with all the shit going on now. Well, in a different way, but not yes. Now, Rip, did you? I never really have heard you talk about it. Did you ever wrestle any territories or anything in California?
I wrestled in San Francisco. I did some shows in California, but by then it was the end of San Francisco territory. And then Piper had me booked in. They used to have in Los Angeles at the Olympic Auditorium. They used to have a territory there with Mike LaBelle, and Piper booked me in there as main event to go in there. And then Randy Savage said, no, it's time to come home.
Really?
So I was out in Portland and Vancouver. I was just on the West Coast, and he said, oh, it was time to come home.
To do ICW or? Yeah,
I'd already been doing it. And then I just went out to get out of there to get away for a while. They said, it's time to come in. We need you now.
Oh, wow.
And I come back. And so that ended that.
Wow.
But there used to be like there's territory in Hawaii, Vancouver, Portland, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. So you could just work the West Coast basically your whole career and just go, I'm here for 2 years, here for 2 years, here for 2 years, here for a year, and it's time to come on back, and you're a new old face again.
Yeah.
So that's the way a lot of guys would do it. Like there was 3 territories in Tennessee, with one in Memphis, one in Nashville, and one in Knoxville. So guys could live in Tennessee their whole career and never leave there.
Yeah. So, hey, back to going to wrestling school then, your first day. So wanting to be a wrestler and actually going and getting in your first class are kind of a little bit different. Some people are very intimidated. Some people are like, yeah, this is exactly what I knew this is how it was going to be. What was your first day like? Do you remember any of the other wrestlers that were there? Were you like, holy shit, what am I getting myself into? How was your first day there?
Are you familiar with the wrestler Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero?
Yeah. I mean, I know who they are, yes.
Well,
Or Rocky Romero, I know that name. I don't know the first name you said.
Ricky Reyes, I forget what his name was on Lucha Underground. But anyway, they were like one of the main trainers, along with Frankie Kazarian, a fellow named Iceman John Black. They were like the main trainers. And Reyes, he's like a very tough exterior. He's very old school. He takes wrestling very serious. So right away, I was like, I want to win him over because I feel like he hates me. He thinks I'm just a girl here trying to get famous. And it wasn't about that. It was just, I was, like I said, since I was a girl, I was just mesmerized by wrestling. And then when that Attitude Era hit, it just seemed very, I guess, reachable to me, and what like I felt, like it wasn't just a little girl feeling I had. It was like what I really was inspired by, and I had to be a part of. So I just would work my ass off. And then that first day, I remember it hurt. It hurt a lot to wrestle and get in there when, never have been in the ring before. But it's almost like right from the get-go, I got addicted. I was just like, I felt like all the pieces were coming together. Like it was what I was supposed to be doing. And some of the things it's like I was understanding the mechanics of like, the role, or like the different little like basics they were like showing me. It made sense to me, versus I've seen like later in my career, people having a hard time like getting over my body's not supposed to do this, like, So I just felt like I was right where I was supposed to be. I think I started just before Melina did. Melina started at the same school, but we were in different classes. And so I would hear about her, she would hear about me. And then when we finally connected, which was pretty early on, that's when some of the boys were just like, oh, they just want to be like pretty faces. So they would beat us up for real and like try to kick us out of there, try to get us to quit. And we just wouldn't. We had each other to like vent to. And Melina would always say, we can't let them see us cry. We can't let them see us cry. And we wouldn't. And I'm really grateful that Melina and I had that connection back then, because I feel we really helped each other stay motivated and not quit. Because after just being there for a few months, I saw quite a few different girls come and go. And then that's when it made sense to me why they did that. And then over that time of just like, I want to say maybe like 6 months in, I finally won Reyes over. And that's when I knew like I was, like I said, again, where I was supposed to be. And then eventually when Melina and I got to train, we started going at the same times and stuff like that. I just really felt that her and I both had something going there. And like, it is just so cool. However, I mean, she's way more famous and better in wrestling than I am, but that we both ended up living our dream. I think it's really cool.
Are you guys still friends? Can I ask that question?
We don't keep in touch, unfortunately. I wish we did, but life happens and you just kind of, lose track of people and stuff like that. But I always wish her well. I hope she's doing well.
Good. So you can't get her on the show for us then?
No, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. So you were there. How long before you got signed then? I mean, did you both get signed close to the same time, didn't you? Did you get signed out of California and sent to OVW or did you go to OVW first?
Well, Melina got signed first,
She did?
and she moved from California to Arizona, and she started wrestling over there. And then that's when she started getting looked at. And for me, I started at that school, and then I had a falling out with the owner after about 2 years. And so when that happened, I started up with it. I started up with another wrestling company called UPW that
Yep.
they were really, really known for like getting people signed to WWE. And I believe at one point, or excuse me, at the time, WWF, at one point, I think that they were like their West Coast kind of like
And was that Cena and those
unofficial.
guys? Did they come out
Yeah,
there?
exactly.
Yeah.
So when I went there, the owner met with me, and he pretty much told me that they wanted to have me go to their school, but I couldn't wrestle anywhere else. And what I was taught by like Reyes, Frankie, and Rocky Romero was the way you become a better worker is you have to work different people, because if you're working the same people in your class all the time, you kind of can get lazy or you don't learn. So when this owner told me that, it didn't make sense. And so I questioned that, and that began the heat with me and that owner. He didn't like that I had to say that.
Wow.
And so what I ended up doing is there was in Orange County, a just pure lucha fed called WPW, and I just started doing lucha. So I did just strictly lucha for 2 years, and that was really cool because we would go out to like Texas and like different area in Mexico, and so I was able to go out into different places. And because that was like some of the best training I got, but not just that, but they would always have different people come in from like different territories. So I was able to work with different people, and I was getting that challenge. So then I was doing that. And then when Melina got signed, I started working for other places, and like, I just was like, yes, we got to be there together. And so eventually what ended up happening is, it's so funny. Johnny Ace called me, and he asked me if I was affiliated with that UPW. And I thought, there goes my chance. Like now, like, I have heat with them. So now he's going to say, forget it. And when I told him no, he was like, okay, good. We can have this conversation. And I was like, whoa, that blew my mind that there was this whole fear I had that because I wasn't with them, I wouldn't have my shot.
Yeah.
And so for about a year, a little over a year, every time the WWE came to California, I would go to their shows. I'd be an extra. I would train in front of them, the whole nine.
Yep.
And then eventually they signed me.
Wow, that's awesome. So they sent you to OVW then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was that? What year was that?
I got signed in 2005.
2005. Now was first of all, was that a culture shock then, going from California to Louisville, Kentucky?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Like I never had lived outside of California. Aside from doing those lucha shows, never really went outside of California. So it was such a trip. First of all, I drove down there, which was interesting. Oh yeah. So that was interesting, but cool. I had my mini pincher, Fred Mertz, God rest his soul. And because I had him, he was 5 years old when I moved there. I wanted to get him a little wife because I was going to be in training all the time. So one of the things I say that wrestling, the best thing it ever gave me was my little Kentucky woman, rest in peace, little Ethel. I got her in Kentucky in it was a White Castle parking lot. The lady came and I bought her. But
really?
So yeah, it was so crazy because it's just me and my little min pins, and I lived at the lodge over there that everyone always lives at until they find their way. And it was crazy because I was always into like old horror movies and stuff like that. So the way I dress really reflected it. And so it was crazy when like I'd be in line and like a little girl would be like, Mommy, why are her nails black? Like it was crazy. And then just
so you fit right in.
It was crazy. But I really appreciate my time in Kentucky, not just the wrestling part, but that it was my first like total leaving California. And I liked it. Like at first it took me a while to get adjusted, but I have a part of my heart in Kentucky. I swear to God.
Nice. Had you ever seen snow before you went there?
No, except up in the mountains here in California, which a lot of it's fake because it's so hot that it doesn't really stay. So yeah, it was really cool when I first saw it snowing and like all that.
So when you were there, though, was Rip ever your trainer? Was Rip still the trainer on developmental there, or who did you have at OVW?
Well, they sent me to his class. And so for a while, I was required to go to his class after like a couple hours of training with Al Snow. So even though it didn't last that long, like there was other people that they sent, like some of the Diva Search girls and me and stuff like that. And I loved it. I learned a lot in that short amount of time. I was able to connect with some of his students that were not contracted, and that was really cool because
probably me.
some of them I'm still friends with to this day.
Oh, well, not
And I loved Rip. I love how rough around the edges he was. I don't know if you remember this, Rip, but you asked me where I was from. And I said, California. And you go, are you Mexican? I said, yeah, he's on. I'm going to call you Taco. And I was all about it.
And I couldn't say that today, could I?
No.
I couldn't speak a word in the world.
Hey, you say it to my wife. What do you mean you can't say it?
But I loved it.
So that was the like intermediate class then, probably. Give us some thoughts. What were your first impressions of Rip? Had you heard anything about Rip? Like when you first met him, obviously you just said what he said, but man, talk about somebody maybe missing a card. I don't know. I mean, what were your thoughts about Rip? And how was class with Rip? How did he treat you? How did that all go down?
Well, I was told how Rip was beforehand.
Okay.
Everyone like kind of told me he was this wild card, whatever. But I like people like that. I like people who don't care. They're blunt because then there's no guessing of what they're thinking or whatever. And to me, being blunt is communicating. Like, how else are you supposed to know unless like you communicate? And when you're blunt, you take out a lot of confusion. I like rough around the edges people. Like I was all about Rip. That's why I thought it was hilarious. He was calling me Taco. And then what's cool though is like it's not like he was this like rough around the edges dude just like running his mouth. Like the knowledge and breaking down wrestling and psychology and the things that matter, the little things that like could set you apart from just wrestler ABC. So it kind of reminded me of when I was training with Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero and Frankie Kazarian, like that old school, this is how you do it. It made sense to me. And I really cherished that time, even though it was short, because eventually, like shortly after, like I went to some classes for a little bit. Then like they started working with me more like with the contracted class. So they weren't having me go there. So I really gained so much from the short amount of time I was there.
How does that make you feel, Rip?
Well, I watch all these, listen to them. Everybody's got a different story, and they're probably lying or putting me over, so it makes you feel good.
We just had an interview with EC3. I don't know if you know who EC3 is or not, but he said exactly the same thing on the little things, like all the little things that Rip taught that other people don't teach, that people don't know or use or implement today, or even back then. Same thing he said. So the other thing that you were saying is basically if you get rid of all the bullshit and just listen to what he's teaching, Rip obviously knows wrestling. And
well, there was this time, it was quite a few years ago. It was my going back to the Indies part 2 for me. So it was after WWE, after TNA. And if you guys remember Serena D, when she had her head injury and she was out for a while and people thought she even thought maybe she had to retire. Well, it was shortly after she came back to wrestling and we were doing this show in Jersey. And I love Serena. I was able to become friends with her through Rip's class. That's how I started to hang out with her and stuff like that. Still cool with her to this day. And shout out Deebs. And
I'm sure she's watching.
And she goes, we were at this show and she was like, you want to do an old school Rip Rogers match? I was like, oh yeah. And so we didn't tell anyone except the referee that we were going to plan a misdirection spot and play off of that she had a head injury. So when we went in there, we did their little opener, whatever, and then we did the misdirection spot. And then she's laying on the canvas and like, oh, and everyone's quiet. Like you can hear a pin drop. And I'm just like freaking out. And then they grab her and they pull her out. Everyone's clapping. And then when I like turned my back to her like this, she jumped out of his arms and hit me. And everyone was like, what? And then we just like told the Story Brothers. And I remember this was Pat Buck's promotion at the time. I just remember seeing his face. He was like, and they told us after the match that they had to cancel the paramedics coming for Serena because we got them. And
that is
we
awesome.
did the 4 corner spot and everything. It was like so awesome. I have chills every time I talk about it because to me, that's what wrestling's effing about. When we work the boys, we work the crowd, we work the promoter, and like that's just what's up. And that's because we met each other in this class. We learned the same kind of psychology. And to this day, that's one of my favorite matches I've ever had in my entire life.
That is awesome. That could be one of the best stories we've had on here. Who did you make do that with? They blew out their knee or ankle or.
Oh, I did it with a couple guys.
Did you do that in practice one day or something? I can't remember.
Mario Bucara.
You had him.
I said, okay. I told Mondo to do it with him, right? So I left off and went off. I went off somewhere for 5 minutes. So then somebody coming in, hey, Mario, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, don't you motherfuckers. You guys are ribbing me. Don't fuck with me, you assholes. Don't treat me like I'm a fucking mark. So I got in there and Mario's laying there. He said, I can't do this, my neck, or whatever the fuck it was. So I grabbed him by the balls and tried to pick him up. And he wouldn't come up and he slobbered.
Oh my God.
And I remember Mason Rage got real mad like he was going to beat my ass. You know what I mean? I'm going, what the fuck? You know, so I'm on him. Anyway, to make a long story short, I said, I give him the fucking cue, boom, and he fucking kipped up.
He kipped
up. Then Mason Rage got real mad. You son of a bitch, you fooled us. The whole thing is within today's world, when they've exposed wrestling on TV, how do you make them believe? So I told Mondo what to do. I said, fight, do it, boom, boom, work a spot. I bet you, hey, we'll go into it. Then awesome. They understood it, that they all got it hook, line, and fucking sinker. They took the goddamn bait and they're all a fucking mark and they believed it. It was phonier and shit.
So Mason Rage was mad that you were messing with him, and then he was mad that you faked it.
He was mad first that I was an asshole. Then he was mad because I fooled him. I said, God damn, you guys are double fucking marks.
That's awesome. Hey, we only have about 10 minutes left. We haven't even gotten into any WWE stuff, so maybe we should at least get into that a little bit. So OVW, you were there, a couple years probably, and then got the call to go up. Were you on the ECW brand first?
Yeah, I was there for a little over a year, and then I was on ECW, and then that's all I was in was ECW. And then I got fired. So
oh, we got to tell a little more than that. I was there too. I got fired. So did you go up originally with I call him Seven, Kevin Thorn? Was that your original?
Well, what's interesting is when I first got hired to go to OVW, Tommy Dreamer told me that because I moved to Kentucky in July, and he told me that after being there for a few weeks, that they were going to call me up with Kevin and Jimmy Wang Yang and Gangrel, and we were going to be the new Brood. But then I'll never forget this. One day he told me, he goes, tomorrow when you come into class, it's promo day, dress in that kind of character. So I dressed in the character, and this was right after the WrestleMania sweeps. And so I remember going to the locker room and Mickey James was there, and I was like, hey, where's Kevin? And she was like, you'll get a kick out of this. She goes, you mean Lil? Do you remember he had a nickname, Lil?
I do not remember that at all.
So she's like, oh, they got fired. I was like, wait, what? And so Jimmy Wang Yang, Kevin, and Gangrel got released. So I was like, oh my God. Like,
they really did.
Happen? Yeah.
Oh shit.
So that's when I ended up, shortly after that, I teamed up with Aaron Stevens and Beth Phoenix, and we
That's
had our
right.
whole
Yeah.
thing. And we did really well with it. They even tried us on SmackDown, and we did like a loop, and we did really well. But they told us when we came back that they saw Aaron being in a tag team, Beth as being like, ultimately a women's champion, and they didn't know what to do with me. They just knew that they wanted me, but whatever. So they broke us up, and then it's so crazy because almost to like, I think it was like in June, but like almost to the year, they ended up bringing Kevin back. And then he and I ended up being the vampires anyway. So it was
Like
just
a
like,
year later.
yeah. And I'm
Wow.
into vampires since I saw Lost Boys when I was a little girl. So to me, and I love the Munsters and stuff like that. So to me, I was like, see, I knew I was supposed to be here. Not only that, but I'm having a gimmick that is really not a gimmick for me. Like, that's just who I am.
Yeah. So that was not your original idea then, that gimmick? No?
No,
Oh, I just
no.
always assumed it was. I didn't know. Huh. That's pretty wild. What was it like working with Idol Stevens, Aaron Stevens? He's been on here. He's been around forever. I really liked his stuff with Damian Sandow. Um, what was it like working with him and Beth?
It was awesome. Like, we had really good chemistry off the bat. Um, Aaron, he really helped guide me into a lot of different things, and like kind of mentored me a bit through working together, and like in the ring stuff and all this, helping me come up with my signature moves and things like that. So I'm really grateful. Like, I always thought it was a bummer city deal that we didn't get to like be on TV like that. But come on, I got to be a vampire. And
Yeah,
then
man.
those two, they had their whole careers and like
Yep.
became their own thing. So it worked out. But like, I really enjoyed working with those two. I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Kevin, he lives right around us. So we're in Indianapolis, Indiana. He's the big time realtor now here in the
Right.
Indianapolis area. So before COVID, when I was still going to the gym before I just moved it to my garage, I used to see him at the gym all the time. So um he's a cool dude. So that's who you went on TV with. I thought that entrance, I thought the gimmick, I thought all that stuff. I thought it was awesome, man. I was a super mark for that stuff. I thought it was great. Did you have creative control on that entrance? Or was that something you guys collaborated together? Some writers? How'd that come about?
Well, when I was with Beth and Aaron, I used to like to do pole dancing for fitness. I always just thought that was really cool. And so I came up with this entrance with Beth. I was like, what if we acted like it was almost like the ring is like a stripper pole almost, and we kind of bend it like over, and then Aaron comes through. And so that's what we used to
Well,
do.
no
And
wonder
so
I like that entrance.
yeah. And so whenever when I ended up with Kevin, I thought, oh my gosh, all I got to do is cross my arms. I'm like a bat. I'm like a freaking bat. And so that's how that came about. And as far as my character went, honestly, no one ever told me anything. Like,
No.
I just did my thing, and no one ever said, okay, you need to do this or that, or dress like this or act like that. I just did whatever I wanted. And one time Vince was like, you're doing a really good job. We've never had anyone like you. So I figured, well, that's what it is. They like what I'm doing. So that's why I'm never told anything.
Yeah. With that being said, then you said, well, I was ECW and then I got fired in 2 years or whatever. What can you give us any story on that? Do you want to go into that? I honestly don't. I read a little internet stuff before you came on, but I really don't even know. Did they just release you?
Well, I thought it was because I had this backstage fight with Batista, and I thought that for a really long time, but now I realize that was just the last nail in the coffin, no pun intended. Because while I was there, I ended up telling off Shawn Michaels, Randy Orton, and Batista. So I probably was just looked at as trouble. But like I told them when I got into my fight backstage with Batista, it was just minutes before going on live television.
Oh,
And
really?
so I remember Johnny Ace came up to me and he was like, how dare you talk to top male talent that way? I said, you know what? I don't give a shit who you are. If you disrespect me, I'm going to stick up for myself. So can I go do my job now? And I knew that was it. And I remember when Kevin won that match. Well, first of all, when I was out there at the ring, the crowd started to like lightly chant my name, and being a heel, you're not supposed to have that happen. And normally I would do something to piss the crowd off so they wouldn't cheer for me. But because my butt ass and my boobs are always out, they loved me. So I played into it because I knew that was probably my last time in that ring. And I remember when Kevin, I went to celebrate with him, I almost cried because I felt like it was coming. And I remember when I went backstage, I told a couple people, I was like, I'm getting fired. They're like, no way, no way. And sure enough, 2 days later, I got the call, and Johnny Ace was just like, keep in touch with us. You never know. And I started laughing, and he was like, why are you laughing? I said, dude, if this is how you guys do business, I'm good. I don't want to be a part of it. And then he was like, what? And then I was like, thanks. And I hung up, and my roommates were like, what just happened? I was like, I got fired. And so that's the short story of how I got fired.
Now, did they keep Kevin at that time?
They did. They
They
changed
did?
his entire character. He wasn't a vampire anymore.
Oh, is that when
And
they? Okay,
yeah, they totally changed him. He kind of just looked like a wrestler, like just
I remember that brief. Yeah, that sucks, man. So you've said it a million times to a million people. You dream about it. You dream about it. You dream about it. You dream about it. You get there, and then everything. The journey, 9 times out of 10, is more fulfilling than the actual destination for a lot of people when it gets to that point.
Yeah.
I mean, that sucks though. Doesn't it suck? I mean,
it does, because I had a lot of fun. I was living my dream. The way I looked at it was, there's all this stuff going on around me that I didn't agree with, but I always felt, if you guys are grown ass adults and this is how you're doing things, that's your business. I'll look the other way. It's not my business. But when people started trying to punk me out for no reason, and like, or maybe they had reason, but I didn't know what it was, and try to like disrespect me, I thought it was pretty crappy that like, oh, my only problem is that I don't let people like talk shit to me.
yeah,
Like I don't let them disrespect me.
yeah.
But
Stick
yet,
up for yourself.
like all this other stuff, I'm like, that's your own deal. That's your own deal, whatever. But that's when I told Johnny Ace, I realized it wasn't for me anymore, if that's what was up. Because I was never somebody that like politicked or got in the writer's ears. And then looking back years later, I realized that people who I later found out would talk about me and like try to bury me, they thought I was politicking. But the thing is there was a couple writers I actually liked. Like we had stuff in common. So when I'd sit with them in catering, I wasn't like, so this is what I think, blah, blah, blah. It was like, yeah, I love that song, or I love that movie.
Yeah, right.
Like I was schmoozing. I wasn't
Yeah.
politicking. And I had a relationship with Paul Heyman. And so people were like, they thought obviously that I was like, politicking with him, but it's just, I liked talking to Heyman. I liked hearing what he had to say. And like, it wasn't like that. So it's just crazy that the longer I'm away from the business, the more I find out what people were saying about me and their perception. And it makes me laugh so freaking hard, because I'm like, dude, because one of the things I thought sucked was when I saw people politicking, backstabbing, they didn't care how they got to the top, shady things going on. But again, I was like, well, hey, who am I a threat to? I'm the only female vampire here. There's no competition. So,
Hey, I hate to cut you off. Do you have time if I send you another link just for a few more minutes?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, because it's gonna. All right, we are recording, so you can hear us, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Where did we just leave off? Oh, you leaving the WWE? Is that where we were at?
Got rid of this bitch's ass because I mouthed off to too many people. But they're fake.
Any regrets on that? I mean, any regrets? You said I'm glad I stood up for myself. I don't want to be there if people are if business is that way. I mean, no regrets.
Well, I had a very wishy-washy vibe about it. At first, I was like, no, dude. Like, I was very offended. I was like, F that. But then there was a time where, like, after I went to TNA and then I took some time off of wrestling and I was getting back into it, I did think, like, maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. And there was a couple times I tried to get my job back because I was broke. I like was totally broke. It's expensive here living in California. I didn't get paid well in TNA, and I'm not trying to talk crap, but it is what it is. There was times like my utilities were getting shut off and things like that. And so it was really rough. And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I might as well just go back to WWE because like that's the way I'm going to get paid properly. So they dangled the carrot a couple times, and I feel I could be wrong, but I kind of feel like maybe they were testing me or they were kind of effing with me because like they had me be a part of that. What was it called? I was like a rosebud a couple times. Like,
Oh yeah, like yeah, for Adam Rose.
yeah. And so it's like, dude, I was on their show. Like, you know what I'm
So
saying?
you were a Rosebud? I didn't know that. Wow.
Twice. And so the second time I was, I just was reminded of why I didn't want to be there. So literally I put vodka in my Gatorade. I had an edible and I ended up confronting some people I had issues with.
Oh my God. This was backstage at TV that you did this?
Yeah. And so, because at that point, the people I confronted, oh, well, you're assholes. So whatever.
Yeah.
And I know I smelled like vodka. I know that they knew that I was high. So I kind of just buried myself again. And after that, I was like, I am fine with that. And it was really rough for me for a while to like, accept the Batista thing because again, I thought that was the reason why. And the only reason why.
Can you elaborate on that? I don't know the story. Are you allowed to tell me that story? Can you elaborate on the
It's so out there.
Is it?
First of all,
I must not be on the internet much.
I have never, ever, ever, ever hooked up with Batista. And I hate that people think that it was like, oh, we banged and then like whatever. No, like not 1%. He and I were friends. He was dating somebody that was my friend, and he wasn't so nice to her. So like I would, as a friend, a homegirl, I would tell her, maybe you shouldn't be with him or whatever. And he would hear me talk to her about it. And he didn't like it. So then he started to treat me differently. And he stopped shaking my hand at work. And so I didn't know what to do because it's like, you're going to get heat if you don't shake hands. And so what he started to do was like at catering, he'd shake everyone's hand at the table but mine and then walk away. So I'd go, hey, Dave, I don't think you saw me. Have a good day. So of course that pissed him off more. And then one day I found myself in the principal's office, aka Johnny Ace, with Dave. And excuse me, he was like, what's going on here? I can't have two talents fighting. And I was like, will you tell me what's going on to Batista? And he just went off. He kind of didn't make sense. And he stormed out. And like a little bitch, I was like, I thought we were friends. I got so emotional. And then Johnny Ace told me, whatever you do, just go up to him and shake his hand. So I was like, fine. So he's like, he really didn't say what his problem with you was. I was like, exactly. So I tried to shake his hand. He wouldn't shake my hand. And then WrestleMania came around and I felt so fancy to fly my sister in because we used to watch wrestling after church when we were little.
Yeah.
And so the fact that here I am able to fly her in, I'm performing at WrestleMania. And there was a elevator where just a bunch of us talent were in, and he was one of the people in there. I was like, crap, I'm the first one out of here. What do I say? So the doors open. I'm like, okay, bye everyone. See you later. And then when the doors were closing, he went, douchebag. And I was like, oh my God. So Johnny Ace asked me how things are going between me and him. I told him the story. I said, look, if he wants to be a dick to me, that's fine. But like in front of my family and other people's family that were like in the elevator, like that's lame. He goes, look, I'm going to tell him I told you just to stay away from him. I was like, thank you. Like, thank you. So I stayed away from him. And then there was this other wrestler who I don't think he ever was on TV or anything, but he was doing darks all the time. And I had a confrontation with him in catering, and he got pissed. So again, that night, the last night I was there, I was getting ready to go on television with Kevin. And I saw that wrestler whisper to Batista. And when Batista, I like, oh shit, it's on. And so Batista goes, hey, Shelly, last I checked, what happened in catering is none of your business. So why don't you mind your own effing business? And I sat there and I thought and everyone, it was like high school. They're like, oh, like they're not watching the monitor anymore. They're just looking. And I was like, dude, I have an action figure coming out. I went to WrestleMania. What better day to get fired? And I said, last I checked, you weren't even in catering. So why don't you mind your own business? So he got pissed. He got in my face. He told me I was nothing in the business, that I don't put asses in seats. And I said, like I said, I don't give a shit what you think of me. And so he put his middle finger in my face and was like pushing me down with it. And I was like, dude, just hit me. Please hit me. Like, hit me. Let's do this. And then he storms off. And then that's when Johnny Ace came. He goes, what happened? And I told him, he goes, did you flip her off? He goes, I don't know, but now I am. Like, it was so lame. And so that's why I was offended when Johnny Ace was like, how dare you talk to top male talent? It's like, dude, look what he just did. So that was how that all happened, the short story. But years later, I was at a film premiere, and he was there. And at that time,
this is post like WWE,
many years after. And I went up to him and we chatted and we squashed our heat and we took a picture together. And so it's so crazy to me that there's people out there, they're like, oh, Shelly is just bitter, da, da, da. And they always bring up Batista. I guarantee you no one brings me up to him. So I think that sucks, that I'm the one that has to deal with it. They don't have the balls to tell him anything.
Hey, when he's on our show, we'll bring it up. Right? All right.
And then B, we squashed our heat, and C, he did me a favor because my journey with wrestling with that company, it was done. It was over. It served its purpose. Like, that was it. And I'm grateful for it all, for all the crap and all the good things. Like, it's helped me be who I am today. And had that not happened, I wouldn't be sitting in this house. I wouldn't have the people in my life that I do now. I wouldn't have had the experiences leading up to today. I wouldn't be sitting here right now, and I wouldn't be living the life that I do. So I don't like when people say I'm bitter. I just think it's so funny. I'm like, dude, like, I am grateful for all of it. Some of it sucks, but I wouldn't be in my life today.
Hey, we're not going to say you're bitter. We're not going to. I didn't even know you were. People said you're bitter. We're not going to say you're bitter. Obviously, you were not, though, in the class where Rip Rogers said, do as I say, not as I do.
What are you talking about?
Say all the right things, keep your mouth shut, blah, 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 like you always tell people. Now, don't do what I do, because I would probably get fired again. But here's what you should do and should say. No, I'm just kidding. You can do whatever you want, man. I think it's great you stood up for yourself. Like you said, you thought the time was coming to an end anyway, so everything happens for a reason. You wouldn't be at Lila Studios right now if this all didn't work out this way, probably.
And I'm sorry in advance. I'm a career killer. So if your guys' podcast goes downhill now because you got mixed up with me, I apologize.
Dude, you've given us more like real life stuff than anybody's ever given us. So that's awesome. It's not going to be a career killer. Hey, so I had it written down somewhere. Okay, well, there's a big gap. You went to TNA. Basically, you've been out of wrestling now for a while. I know you did some shows here and there and stuff like that. But let's see what you're doing today. I know you've got podcast. Ben Hameen, I think, didn't Ben Hameen just come on your show not too long ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a great episode. I am just been a full-time content creator. I ended up retiring from wrestling in 2017. And then that's when I became a full-time content creator. Going back to like the beginning of our interview, the full circle of, I just went back to modeling and some acting, not really. I don't really care because I thought for the longest time wrestling was better for me because it wasn't like the world of Hollywood, but this one and the same. It's just like one and the same. So I just do my own thing. I've always had websites even before I got into wrestling. So I've always lived a .com kind of life. I just, like I said, put it on pause because I was in wrestling for 17 years. I don't think people realize that because they only saw me in WWE and TNA. They didn't realize that, I was in the indies for 5 years before I went to WWE.
Yeah, you were in a lot longer than like ECW for
right
2 or 3 years or whatever. Yeah.
So
right.
I just went back to that. I have been doing podcasts since about 2008. I've been doing them.
Nice.
So yeah, that's just another passion I've always had was broadcasting.
What show was Ben Hameen on?
I have a show called The Smoke Out with Shelly and Stoner Jesus. And
Oh, that Rip, you'd be perfect on that, man. Rip's a big stoner, right, Rip?
Oh, yeah. Stoner.
Rip hadn't drank since 86. Is that right? 86. So when we hit 1,000 subscribers on here, I made him do a shot. So we did a shot. Rip got drunk on one shot since he hadn't drank since 1986. He loves marijuana. He does a lot of different drugs. So he'd be a great guest on the Stoner with Jesus or whatever that. So Ben Hameen was on that. So he's a close personal friend of the show. I was actually just on the reason I knew I was just on one of his shows yesterday. Man, he does all kinds of stuff. So he's out there all the time, all over the place. He's doing content and shows every single day. We're just learning. So if you got any advice to Lila Studios, Wrestling with Rip Rogers, we'd be happy to take it. You got anything for us? How can we get better at what we're doing?
just keep doing it. Like, that's the thing. The more you do it, the better it gets. Like, you feel more comfortable. You might try some things out, find out what works, what doesn't work, find out who your audience is, and that's important. So then you can kind of cater your content towards that. Yeah, so just keep doing it. It's like wrestling. The more matches you have, the better you become.
Good advice. Who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
Well, as far as
or just
like
one of them.
When I feel like I became a super fan of it, like I said, when I was a little older and in high school. So I love people like Goldust, the freaking Hardys with Lita. Like, I thought that was great. Christian and Edge, Dean Malenko. I love him, and I love him as a person. Like, when I got to work with him and get to know him.
That was my next thing. Who was one of your favorite people to work with?
Well, like Dean Malenko, he was an agent when I was there, but like I loved his wrestling before. There was something about him. And when I got to know him, like to this day, I'm like, I think about him a lot. I'm like, freaking Dean Malenko, man. Let's see who else. I liked Eddie Guerrero a lot. So that's just to name a few like that stick out to me that I just was kind of like, whoa,
Yeah.
Kurt Angle. I used to love Kurt Angle. Oh my God. I loved him so much, especially because when I became familiar with him, knowing that he was a legit wrestler, not just, a pro wrestler or entertainment wrestler. That was really cool. So that's just to name a few. And it was really cool that I feel like the beginning stages of me being cool with him, one-on-one, was when I was in ECW because I was around him. But I feel like I got to know him better when I was in TNA because he was there. I was there. So that was really cool too.
Nice.
Oh, William Regal. Oh my God. William freaking Regal. He was awesome too.
He's a Rip guy. Rip got him over here, right, Rip?
Yeah, we lived together in England, Austria, and Germany.
Oh, I've heard stories.
They're probably all true. Guilty as charged, no matter what it was. And I'd do it again, too.
Oh, that is so awesome. All right, well, we're going to wrap up here. We can't thank you enough for jumping on here with us today. Rip, you got any final thoughts?
They're pretty dirty, so
okay.
Hey, it's always a plus, right?
Sure.
hey, why does a guy put up with some girl's mouth?
Oh my
Because
God.
she's hot, right? So you always had the hot card going for you.
There you go.
So you got that evil woman's tongue. that if, let's just say, if you were heavy and unattractive, you wouldn't be that way.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked final thoughts for Rip Rogers.
You had the hot card. Shit. You ain't hot card.
I'll take
Okay. Read between the lines.
That should have been your advice to me when I said, "Hey, you got any advice?" Yeah, don't let Rip finish out the the interview.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Hey, thanks a lot for coming on here today. I'll let you know when this is coming out. We really appreciate it, and good luck to you with all your podcasts, all your kind of stuff. I should have it down here. Shelly and Stoner Jesus Smoke Out. You got all kinds of podcast talking shit. I saw Shelly TV. Go to Twitter, click that little link up there. All of it comes up, right? Everything comes up that you're doing.
Just go to ShellyMartinez.net. It's all there.
It's all there, baby. ShellyMartinez.net. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Taco. Have a good one, baby.
You too. Bye.
Yeah, big gold and a billfold, so swole that I can't get the shit closed. So I money fold and rubber band wrap, and when it pop, bitches sound like a hand clap.